Though he might have said he would remain silent during Birdall's inspection, a voice can communicate in ways other than auditory. He watches while Olander carries out Birdall's directions, attempting to deduce what the elf is up to. How do you feel about that guy? Using body language and a peculiar additional language that appears to be a significant component of shark talk, he asks the first mate. It's another strange way of communicating, but it's not much more difficult than pheromoning back at Queen when they converse. The first mate concurs, observing Olander's every move with her own eyes. He seems suspicious. With a sly smile, he tells her not to stare. He may believe you despise him, or worse, that you approve of him. She gives him a look, which makes him laugh, but at least she's starting to be more subtly observe things now. He is really accomplished. There's no finer read than that one. The rat scion nods absently. Yes, exactly the same. He appears somewhat amiable, but he's clearly having trouble in this situation. Thus, why? With a shrug, the first mate bobbles. Who knows? Delvers are considerably harder to forecast than admirals. Teemo gives a nod in agreement while Olander and Birdall battle a small group of fighter crabs, which Olander eliminates with a single blow. Dividing grasp. Teemo is very certain that glaives aren't intended for thrusting, but it appears that this guy missed the memo. Though it appears to be a thrust, the motion actually splits the two crabs effortlessly, sending a tall blade of force through the salty water. The voice, impressed, can't resist whistling. Birdall glances to the seasoned elf, seemingly feeling the same thing. That was powerful! Do you have experience battling underwater? With a smile, the elf shrugs. Though I'm not quite used to it, I have done it previously. A glaive thrust is always unexpected, so I've made it a mainstay of my look. I can project and focus the energy without the help of a spike if I have adequate kinetic affinity control. Birdall nods at that, going to a fresh page in his notes to write that down for his own reference, then back to his inspection notes. Olander looks at the floating clipboard and asks, "How different is it from the last inspection?" Tarl examined Hullbreak shortly after Thedime had made him a vassal. Although Thedime managed to restart him, the majority of the nodes and spawners were somewhat rudimentary during the last examination. For instance, there was far reduced abundance in the kelp nodes. Olander nods, appearing oblivious to Teemo and the first mate, watching him closely. And the crabs? Birdall looks at the notes for a moment before answering. It's difficult to tell how much stronger you are than Tarl, but I believe they've only received 1 or maybe 2 improvements. Alternatively, he may be keeping larger crabs for the lighthouse and employing the simpler ones for the nodes. That makes the elf hum. Is it truly gone from the autumn? Birdall collects a few kelp samples and shakes his head. No, sorry. The dame was getting ready for construction, although I don't think it had begun by then. Although it's not quite finished, it ought to be working, correct? At that, he looks over at the first mate, who nods immediately. Indeed. Although the captain is still fine-tuning the encounters, I don't think Mr. Olander will find them particularly difficult. He makes an effort to downplay her faith in him. I'll have a lot more trouble than even under the waves if it's cramped. Although the blade works well as a rudder, I still need space to maneuver it. It's not always the best use of it just because I can thrust with it. Though neither Teemo nor the first mate are persuaded, they don't see the purpose in debating. Then, I hope it's okay if the captain deploys a few of sharks to guard the clam beds. In the most recent inspection, I don't think he was able to send any at Tarl. Birdall continues, If you don't mind, that'd be very helpful. Our knowledge of the shark dwellers' strength is simply approximate. The only dwarven ship commander, in my opinion, who purposefully challenged them was someone who wished to take advantage of them. The first mate growls with laughter at the recollection. I'm hoping he returns soon. I have never before received a personal challenge from a delver. He handled the setback nicely, and I'm forward to see what improvements he plans to make. Olander shrugs and gives her a slight sidelong glance. I think I can handle 1 or 2 sharks. Are there any specializations I should be aware of? Not particularly. Our goal is to fight, not really play tricks. Queen could manufacture some go juice for you guys. Boss should check on it. Or your eel wise. Check on it. Or your eels. Both would be appropriate, says Teemo. Olander asks, go juice? And Birdall responds by giving an explanation. The Deem refers to it as the lightning affinity serum that his alchemist is able to create. It functions similarly to a hastening potion in Delvers, but it bestows lightning affinity on residents. Although I believe it should be reapplied in between spawns, lightning inhabitants are frequently spotted in and around the manor. Oh. As the inspection moves forward into the clam beds, Olander appears to consider that information. His attention then shifts back to Birdall and himself as 2 tiger sharks attempt to intercept them. He's focusing on the sharks, not the crabs, where he appeared to be fairly at ease. With his glaive ready, he steps in between the approaching fish and the catkin. As they split apart and begin to circle the 2 in opposing directions, the sharks don't appear impressed. As they get closer, Olander takes decisive action, as though he already knows exactly where they will stand. When he slices the blade upward towards one shark, he's not kidding when he says it makes an excellent rudder. Then, he lets go of the sword and uses his own momentum to position himself to bring the other shark down. He yells, "Twin crescents!" as 2 powerful blades fly towards the svelte predators. Before it can accomplish much, the first is sliced through, but the other twists and only loses part of its tail. Though it managed to dodge the lethal hit, its diminished mobility prevents it from evading Birdall's flying blades. Cut! The catkin lacks the raw strength to destroy the injured shark, but because its remaining fins are incapacitated, Olander can swim up and decapitate the creature with ease. Returning the trophy to Birdall, he proceeds to extract as many teeth as possible before the remaining ones return to mana. Teemo says, "I think you could handle more than just a couple sharks, my guy," to which Olander merely shrugs. Yes, by me. Even if it doesn't appear like you would want to enter covertly and take Birdall, I should still be cautious. Before the shark leaves, Birdall extracts an even 12 teeth, and he moves to pick up a few clams while he talks. Olander, I believe I'm on their side. To have a challenge, you would most likely have to square up against the quartermaster or first mate. The elf stares at Teemo's current ride with great interest, after expressing interest in that idea. First mate, are you up for a fight? I said. She gives a head shake. Not at all. Despite my might, I have no desire to engage in combat with Delvers. I bet neither is the quartermaster. The admiral was highly successful in taking away his will to fight. Oh? Teemo gives a nod. Indeed. It wasn't as easy for the boss to vassalize Hullbreak as he had hoped. In a desperate move, Hullbreak sold up about everything to create the quartermaster, an albatross scion. He has a strong storm affinity and is quite skilled at it. Teemo continues, and Birdall leads the group towards the lighthouse. Considering how desperate it was, the strategy was quite ingenious. If we didn't back off, he was going to take a swing at foredock with the scion and a flock of birds, leaving them both to starve. Naturally, it's difficult to outmaneuver the boss. To stop him, he sent Poe. Up until the quartermaster dug deep and produced a cyclone, he was doing a good job. Olander scowls in response. How did you rebuild with such speed? Teemo smiles and Birdall snorts. What, you don't think the boss can avert a minor catastrophe like a hurricane? His conduit Fluffles was sent. In addition to getting a title, he consumed the storm and destroyed the quartermaster with it. Eater of storms. At that, Olander's scowl gets wider. Eater of storms? Did he not already have a storm affinity? Nope. Teemo smiles broadly and stays silent, much to the seasoned elf's dismay. From the incident, we received a lot of reports, says Burdal. There were numerous storm-loving explorers in the region, and they all expressed the same opinion. Fluffles had stolen the hurricane's energy and used it against the quartermaster. Olander complains, "That's not how that works," which just makes Teemo's smile bigger. When they arrive at the lighthouse and Teemo has to say goodbye to the first mate, the elf is lost in contemplation. "Please inform me if the captain requires any assistance with the cliffs. Although the boss says you're in charge, you don't have to do everything on your own." The shark nods its head. "I'll forward any questions he may have. I believe he wants to let the new eels try carving them, although he might consult his spawners for advice. For now, the lighthouse will only be used by gulls and crabs. Before adding anything further, he wants to know what the delvers think of the encounters. All right, enough. We'll get together again once they've completed this section." The three walk into the lighthouse after she nods. Teemo believes that Coda went above and above with the design, and he can only speculate about the extent of the Delver Mason's learning from the endeavor. But he doesn't allow himself to become very preoccupied, and he watches Olander closely as they ascend through the conflicts with the birds and crabs. Teemo doesn't believe the elf's distraction has anything to do with the architecture. He's dismantling the encounters rapidly, without even employing any skills. He finds the elf's seeming thrownness to be encouraging, even though the talent display is a touch frightening. Even if he has experience, he is still not an expert. The boss has not seen anything in regards to him. Teemo is eager to see Fluffles' response to some of the other things the boss has done if one of his titles has upset him this much. I hope you enjoy entertainment video, like subscribe, and share video.